Newsmakers Today, looking at the expanding field of plant-based and lab-grown alternatives to animal meat.
In the United States, the burger has been both celebrated as an American favorite, but also denigrated as unhealthy. Americans eat nearly 60 pounds of beef per year, which stacks up to a couple hundred hamburgers. The rise of a new generation of meat is predicted to change not only the beef industry itself, but also the entire global food production system.
Take a look at these 3 burgers over here. Only one of them is actually made from beef. The other 2 from plant proteins.
I've come to the Beyond Meat headquarters in El Segundo, California, to see the substance and the science behind this movement.
We have to solve this protein issue if we're going to have a sustainable planet, if we're going to have a healthy population.
The growing beef with beef, especially factory farming, is partly because research shows it's severely damaging to the environment. According to the UN, beef alone is responsible for 41% of livestock greenhouse gas emissions, such as methane and nitrous oxide. Those livestock emissions make up 14.5% of total global emissions. In Redwood City, California, Impossible Foods is another U.S. company at the forefront of the plant-based meat revolution.
Our mission is very simple. It's to completely replace animals as a food technology by 2035 globally. People are not wedded to the idea that meat has to come from animals. They're very wedded to the idea that they gotta have meat.
But is the Impossible Burger good for you? Nutritionist and CNN Health and Nutrition contributor Lisa Dreher analyzed 3 types of burgers: beef, Impossible, and Beyond.
There is no doubt that by eating less meat and focusing more on a plant-based diet, you can improve your health and you can contribute to the healthfulness of the planet.
Dreher also found plant-based meat to be higher in sodium, with the Impossible Burger containing 370 milligrams of sodium, the Beyond Burger 390 milligrams. A pre-made beef patty has 65 to 75 milligrams of sodium depending on the brand.
So if you're eating these burgers solely for their health value, then you may want to reconsider.
Jan Dukevich, a Johns Hopkins University fellow, has perhaps a more optimistic view. We caught up with him in Mexico City, where he's researching animal farming.
There's a shift change in mainstream opinion about everything from animal ethics and animal welfare to acknowledgement that we're facing a number of major environmental crises, including a climate change crisis. If you're talking about cellular agriculture, that is to say clean meat or cell-based meat, here we're talking about a very real disruption of the food system as we know it. They're saying we can get something like meat without the animal.
CNN.
Now this story is focusing on how the meat will have impact on the earth and the environment as well. Meat has a lot of sodium, which is also bad for human health. When you look at 3 hamburgers here, 3 hamburgers in the stories, one has a lot of made of beef, one is made of an artificial meat. So eating less meat is good for environment. That's what I've got. Newspapers today. Average how many pounds of beef do Americans consume each year?これも覚えてない。 than beef. 人工肉ね。牛肉が不可欠。粛清だ。
CNN newsmakers today, looking at the expanding field of plant-based and lab-grown alternatives to animal meat.
In the United States, the burger has been both celebrated as an American favorite, but also denigrated as unhealthy. Americans eat nearly 60 pounds of beef per year, which stacks up to a couple hundred hamburgers. The rise of a new generation of meat is predicted to change not only the beef industry itself, but also the entire global food production system. Take a look at these three burgers over here. Only one of them is actually made from beef. The other two from plant proteins. I've come to the Beyond Meat headquarters in El Segundo, California, to see the substance and the science behind this movement.
We have to solve this protein issue if we're going to have a sustainable planet, if we're going to have a healthy population.
Solve this protein issue. So, the answer is almost 60. Americans eat nearly 60 pounds of beef per year, which stacks up to a couple hundred hamburgers. A couple hundred hamburgers. Stacks up to 20 books, which stacks up to blah blah blah. The rise of a new generation of meat is projected to change not only the beef industry itself, but also the entire global food production system. Take a look at these three hamburgers over here. Only one of them is actually made from beef. The other two from plant proteins. Plant proteins come to the Beyond Meat headquarters to see the substance and the science behind this movement. We have to solve this protein issue if we're gonna have a sustainable planet, if we're gonna have a healthy population.
The growing beef with beef, especially factory farming, is partly because research shows it's severely damaging to the environment. According to the UN, beef alone is responsible for 41% of livestock greenhouse gas emissions, such as methane and nitrous oxide. Those livestock emissions make up 14.5% of total global emissions. In Redwood City, California, Impossible Foods is another U.S. company at the forefront of the plant-based meat revolution.
Our mission is very simple. It's to completely replace animals as a food technology by 2035 globally. People are not wedded to the idea that meat has to come from animals. They're very wedded to the idea that they gotta have meat.
People are not wedded to the idea that meat has to come from animals. They're very wedded to the idea. They're very wedded to the idea that they've got to have meat. Method 5. Ground beef with beef special function. To run impossible foods. Protein issue and impossible foods, which is not only good for meat. New generation, it is ready to change. Switch global food production system. not which is good for which is good not only for environment and health, but also the global environment as well. For impossible foods, plant-based meat revolution. Plant-based meat revolution. Greenhouse gases emitted from the agriculture and livestock. Corned beef with beef. He 60ポンド。ハンバーガー200個。マジでハンバーガー200個か。
But is the Impossible Burger good for you? Nutritionist and CNN Health and Nutrition contributor Lisa Dreyer analyzed three types of burgers: beef, Impossible, and Beyond.
There is no doubt that by eating less meat and focusing more on a plant-based diet, you can improve your health and you can contribute to the healthfulness of the planet.
Dreyer also found plant-based meat to be higher in sodium, with the Impossible Burger containing 370 milligrams of sodium, the Beyond Burger 390 milligrams. A pre-made beef patty has 65 to 75 milligrams of sodium depending on the brand.
So if you're eating these burgers solely for their health value, then you may want to reconsider.
Dreyer also found plant-based meat to be high in sodium with the Impossible Burger. Wow, the sodium, the Beyond. A pre-made beef patty. So if you're eating these burgers solely for their health value, then you might want to cost. A lot of sodium, which is not good for your health. Impossible Burger and Beyond Burger. Contributor lies there's no time to contribute to healthfulness. Sodium pre-made patty. Solely for their health value.
Andukevich, a Johns Hopkins University fellow, has perhaps a more optimistic view. We caught up with him in Mexico City, where he's researching animal farming.
There's a shift change in mainstream opinion about everything from animal ethics and animal welfare to acknowledgement that we're facing a number of major environmental crises, including a climate change crisis. If you're talking about cellular agriculture, that is to say clean meat or cell-based meat, here we're talking about a very real disruption of the food system as we know it. They're saying we can get something like meat without the animal.
That's meat. change the mainstream opinion about everything from animal ethics and animal welfare to acknowledgement that we are facing a major environmental crisis, including the climate change crisis. If you're talking about cellular, agriculture, that is to say clean meat, or sow-based meat, here we're talking about a very real disruption of the food system as we know it. They're saying we can't get something like meat without the animal. So agriculture focuses on two things. One is to reduce the emission of greenhouse gases. The other one is to solve the problem of food shortage. $77億人もいいのもclean meat.植物由来の人口大豆やエンドウ 筋肉細胞コラーゲン15兆円すげえな。15兆円。昆虫食べんの？健康志向動物。It's very true though. Edible insects. Japan's been eating a lot of insects from ancient times. We eat the cockroaches, 蜂の子、サザムシ、金庫。How to say it in English? The verbs from the beef, and the digestion. A lot of them, I think. Which destroy the light. Bionic cultured meat, farmed fish, cultured meat. Animal feed.
CNN newsmakers today, looking at the expanding field of plant-based and lab-grown alternatives to animal meat.
In the United States, the burger has been both celebrated as an American favorite, but also denigrated as unhealthy. Americans eat nearly 60 pounds of beef per year, which stacks up to a couple hundred hamburgers. The rise of a new generation of meat is predicted to change not only the beef industry itself, but also the entire global food production system.
Take a look
Take
at
a
these
look
three
at these
burgers
three
over
burgers
here.
over here.
Only one of them is actually made from beef. The other two from plant proteins. I've come to the Beyond Meat headquarters in El Segundo, California, to see the substance and the science behind this movement.
We have to solve this protein issue if we're going to have a stable planet, if we're going to have a healthy population.
The growing beef with beef, especially factory farming, is partly because research shows it's severely damaging to the environment. According to the UN, beef alone is responsible for 41% of livestock greenhouse gas emissions, such as methane and nitrous oxide. Those livestock emissions make up 14.5% of total global emissions. In Redwood City, California, Impossible Foods is another U.S. company at the forefront of the plant-based meat revolution.
Our mission is very simple. It's to completely replace animals as a food technology by 2035 globally. People are not wedded to the idea that meat has come from animals. They're very wedded to the idea that they gotta have meat.
But is the Impossible Burger good for you? Nutritionist and CNN Health and Nutrition contributor Lisa Dreher analyzed three types of burgers: beef, Impossible, and Beyond.
There is no doubt that by eating less meat and focusing more on a plant-based diet, you can improve your health and you can contribute to the healthfulness of the planet.
Dreher also found plant-based meat to be higher in sodium, with the Impossible Burger containing 370 milligrams of sodium, the Beyond Burger 390 milligrams. A pre-made beef patty has 65 to 75 milligrams of sodium depending on the brand.
So if you're eating these burgers solely for their health value, then you may want to reconsider.
Jan Dukevich, a Johns Hopkins University fellow, has perhaps a more optimistic view. We caught up with him in Mexico City, where he's researching animal farming.
There's a shift change in mainstream opinion about everything from animal ethics and animal welfare to acknowledgement that we're facing a number of major environmental crises, including a climate change crisis. If you're talking about cellular agriculture, that is to say clean meat or cell-based meat, here we're talking about a very real disruption of the food system as we know it. They're saying we can get something like meat without the animal.
Now, workers are suffering from the food shortage and destitute poverty problem. There are more and more people on the earth. Now 7.7 billion people in the earth, but by 2050 it will increase to 9.7 billion people, which leads to the worst problem. We need more food and we need more land and water, but actually the livestock consumes a lot more water and lands, and also gives off methane like from their verbs or pee and poops. So that's one of the big problems on the earth. Actually 14.5% of the methane is from livestock. So this movement will probably change the problem, but actually I don't think this food will have good effect on the human bodies, because they have a lot more sodium, like probably 6 times or 5 times than the real meat. They're plant-based meat, made from daisy, made from soybeans. That's it.